Right before heading off on a vacation to Hawaii, my in-laws left me in charge of my supposedly mute sister-in-law, Evelyn. As they were leaving, my husband Bowden told me, "It's your responsibility to take care of her, don't slack off." But the moment Bowden and his family were gone, Evelyn shocked me by sitting up and saying, "All right." I used to dream about singing under bright lights, being a pop star, if you can believe it. But life has this brutal way of replacing dreams with bills and deadlines. By the time I hit 27, those dreams were buried under a pile of be-realistic lectures and job applications. I ended up working at a bank, stable, respectable, soul-crushing. That's when Bowden came into my life. We met through a friend, and at first, he felt like a breath of fresh air. He was charming, attentive, even confessed that he once had dreams of being in the entertainment world too. I guess part of me latched onto that, like we were two dreamers who had just been dealt the wrong cards. My mom was constantly asking when I was going to settle down and give her a grandchild. So when Bowden started talking about marriage, I said yes. I quit my job, thinking maybe this was my next chapter, being a wife, maybe a mom someday. Bowden worked for some big trading firm in Manhattan and made good money. I figured we'd be okay. At first, we were. He was sweet. Supportive. If I mentioned a bag I liked, he'd surprise me with it a month later. If I was tired and didn't feel like cooking, he'd pick up takeout with a smile. But then, slowly, things changed. Or maybe he just stopped pretending. The man who used to hold my hand across the table started pulling away. He stayed late at work more often, always reeking of alcohol when he came home. Work dinners, he'd mumble, avoiding eye contact. He stopped inviting me to visit his parents, which was odd because we used to go together all the time. Conversations became one-sided. And when I asked what was going on, he looked me dead in the eye and said, "You're overthinking." Just like that. Like I was the crazy one. I wanted to believe it was just stress, just a rough patch. But deep down, I knew. The man I married was slowly disappearing, and I didn't know who was taking his place. All I knew was, I'd given up everything for him. And I was starting to wonder if he ever truly saw me at all. The first time I met Evelyn, I was nervous. Bowden's little sister, mute and bedridden from a brain illness she had as a kid, was said to be the family's delicate treasure. I expected awkwardness. Maybe distance. But what I got instead was warmth. She had this calm smile that made you feel safe. Even though she couldn't speak, she used sign language, and after a few visits, I started picking it up naturally. We bonded in a way I didn't expect. I'd sign silly things like, "We're basically besties now, right?" And she'd smile and respond, "Forever." It was the one place in that house where I didn't feel judged. With Evelyn, I was enough, but her mother? That woman made sure I never forgot I was not enough. She'd barge into our condo, unannounced, always judging. "Bodney's shoes are filthy," she'd scold. Yes, she actually called him Bodney, like he was still 5. "A man's shoes reflect his career, you should keep them spotless." She'd nitpick everything. Fold the laundry properly. Don't go to bed before Bodney, even if he says it's fine. It's your duty to make sure he's in a good mood. I wish I was joking. It was like I'd married into some 1950s fever dream. I tried to smile through it. Tried to be the good daughter-in-law. But no matter what I did, it was never enough. She hated that I didn't have a high-paying job anymore. Hated how close I was to Evelyn. And she made it clear, I wasn't one of them. I was just the girl who'd married her precious son. The outsider, still, I clung to Evelyn. She made the visits bearable. She'd sign jokes behind her mom's back and wink at me like we were in on some secret. I needed that. I needed someone to remind me I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't the failure Bowden's mom made me feel like. Looking back, it was strange how different Evelyn was from the rest of the family. Sweet. Observant. Quiet, but sharp. And for some reason, I felt like there was something more to her. Something she wasn't telling me. But I didn't push. Not yet. Because at that point, I had no idea just how deep the lies in that family went. Or how Evelyn, silent, sweet Evelyn, was about to change everything. At first, I blamed it on stress. Everyone hits a rough patch, right? I kept telling myself that Bowden was just tired. That all those late nights and missed calls were because he was swamped at work. But deep down, I knew something had shifted. The man who used to kiss my forehead before bed now barely acknowledged me. He started coming home later and later, reeking of alcohol and fake cologne. His tie loosened, shirt wrinkled, face blank, like he'd been somewhere else entirely. And not just physically. I asked him once, gently, "Bowden, is everything okay? You don't talk to me anymore." He didn't even look up from his phone. Just muttered, "You're overthinking." Overthinking? That's what he called my concern? I felt like a ghost in my own marriage. He'd eat alone. Sleep facing the wall. And worst of all, he stopped inviting me to visit his family. The same man who used to take me to his parents' house every weekend now made up excuses. "It's just a quick stop, they're busy, you wouldn't enjoy it." At first, I believed him. But after months of being shut out, I started to wonder. What was he hiding? The few times I did ask real questions, like, "Are we okay?" Or "Why are you pulling away from me?" He'd sigh dramatically, like I was exhausting him, then say something like, "God, you're so sensitive lately. Maybe you're the one who's changed." Classic gaslighting. And it worked, for a while. I started doubting myself. Maybe I was being needy. Maybe he was just tired. Maybe I should be more understanding. But the truth? Bowden wasn't tired. He was slipping. He wasn't just distant, he was cold, calculated, and cruel. He started mocking things I cared about. Still daydreaming about being a singer? He'd scoff, laughing under his breath. Or worse, "You gave up your job for this life, Venus. Don't act like I owe you anything." That hit me like a slap. The same man who once surprised me with birthday flowers and listened to my childhood songs was now treating me like dead weight, and every time I tried to connect, to pull us back to what we were, he pulled further away. He'd text all night with someone he swore was just a coworker, leave early without saying goodbye, and come home acting like I was invisible. And still, I stayed. I kept hoping the man I married was still in there somewhere. That maybe, just maybe, this was a phase, but no. Bowden wasn't changing, he was revealing himself. The mask had slipped. And underneath? There was no love. No warmth. Just this cold, arrogant shell of a man who saw me as a burden. A mistake. A roadblock to whatever fantasy life he was building behind my back. I didn't know the full truth yet. But I could feel it, like a storm brewing just out of sight, and I was right. It was coming. I just didn't know how ugly it would get. So out of nowhere, Bowden announces, "I'm going to my parents' house this Sunday. You coming or not?" I blinked. I hadn't been invited in months, and now suddenly he's asking me to tag along? I should have known something was off, but I was just so desperate for a sliver of normalcy. "Of course," I said quickly. "I'd love to see Evelyn." At the mention of her name, Bowden's jaw twitched. "Yeah. You and Evelyn sure get along," he muttered, like it annoyed him. I laughed it off, but inside I was uneasy. That Sunday, we drove out to his parents' house, and I even picked up some pastries from a fancy bakery, figured maybe, just maybe, his mom wouldn't scowl at me if I came bearing gifts. Big mistake. The moment she opened the box, she barely looked inside and went, "Oh, these again?" Like I'd personally offended her taste buds. Classic, things only got weirder. Bowden asked his mom if his dad was around. "Nah, he's at a meeting," she said, and I suddenly felt like I was the only one who didn't know what this little reunion was really about. "Did you need to talk to him about something?" I asked Bowden. He glared and snapped, "It's none of your business." Right in front of his mother, like I was some nosy stranger. "We're married." "How is it not my business?" I said, trying to stay calm. His mom jumped in with a sneer, "If Bowden doesn't want to share something with you, don't push him." I bit my tongue so hard I swear I tasted blood. Then the bomb dropped. Bowden smiled, fake, polished, and said, "Actually, the whole family's going to Hawaii next week." My heart stopped. "What?" "Except you," he added smoothly. "You'll be staying here to take care of Evelyn." Just like that. No invitation. No explanation. Just a "here's your assignment, deal with it." I looked around the room and realized they had planned this. He waited to tell me here, with his mother backing him up, just to trap me into saying yes. And I did. Because as much as it stung, staying behind with Evelyn sounded better than being trapped in paradise with people who clearly wanted me gone, so I nodded, smiled, and swallowed my pride. "Sure," I said. "I'll take care of her." But deep down, something had snapped, and I wasn't going to let it go. The second that front door slammed and Bowden's voice faded down the driveway, "Take care of Evelyn, don't slack off." I rolled my eyes so hard it gave me a headache. I dragged my suitcase back to Evelyn's room, ready to collapse into a week of quiet caretaking and avoidance. But when I opened the door, she was sitting up. Not just propped up, sitting upright with the biggest smirk on her face. "All right," she said casually, "let's get going too." My soul left my body. "What?" I croaked. The girl who had only signed to me for years was suddenly talking like this was no big deal. Evelyn giggled at my face. "I told you I could walk and talk." I was frozen. "Since when?" I asked. "Since last year," she shrugged, like she'd just told me she learned how to knit. Then she dropped a truth bomb that knocked the air out of me. Her mother, the venom in a blouse, wasn't even her real mom. Evelyn was her dad's daughter from a previous marriage. Everything made sense. The coldness. The way she was treated like some inconvenient burden. She'd faked being mute and bedridden just to avoid dealing with that woman. And honestly, I couldn't even blame her. "But guess what?" Evelyn added with a grin. "We're going to Hawaii too." I blinked. "Come again?" "Yep," she said. "Same resort. Different airline. Flights booked. Hotel reserved. Passport? Got it last month. Dad's covering everything. Even your ticket." My jaw hit the floor. This girl, who I thought needed help brushing her hair, had plotted a full-blown counter-vacation. I just stood there, stunned. "Evelyn," I said slowly, "you're telling me we're crashing their Hawaii trip?" She nodded like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "They think they can use you and dump you?" "I don't think so." And that's how I found myself shoving my suitcase back into a cab, this time with Evelyn at my side. Heading to the airport. Her dad was waiting at the terminal, calm and supportive, like this was all just a fun little secret mission. "Have a good time, girls," he said warmly. I was still trying to process all of it, her walking, talking, planning, but one thing was clear, this wasn't just a vacation anymore, this was war. We landed in Hawaii just after sunrise, the salty air wrapping around us like a fresh start. Evelyn and I checked into the same resort Bowden's family was staying at, on a different airline, different wing, everything. I couldn't believe it was real. Just a few days ago, I was being dumped off like the family babysitter. Now? I was on a secret mission with my not-so-disabled partner in revenge. We rested that afternoon, caught up on sleep and nerves, but by 7 p.m., I was ready. I told Evelyn I was going to scout the restaurant, they'd probably be down there for dinner, celebrating like the selfish little unit they were. "Stay close," I whispered. But not too close. I crept down to the lobby. Heart pounding in my throat. The restaurant had an open-air concept, soft lighting, linen-draped tables. I hid behind a column near the entrance and scanned the room, and there they were. Bowden. His mom. his dad. But also another woman. Some smiling stranger. Dressed up. Sitting next to Bowden. Laughing. Like she belonged. My stomach dropped. I inched closer, just enough to hear. What I caught made my blood run cold. I'm glad she's not here, my mother-in-law muttered. She's tainted our family. Bowden chuckled. I'm divorcing her. I'll find a reason. And squeeze every penny I can before I dump her. My hand clamped over my mouth, and if you can't find a reason, his mom said sweetly, we'll just make one up. She's gullible. Always has been. That woman next to him just sipped her wine, oblivious. I stood frozen, heartbreaking and boiling at the same time. Every lie. Every gaslight. Every cold shoulder, it all added up. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't overthinking. I was being set up. I slipped away from the restaurant, my hands shaking. When I got back to the room, Evelyn took one look at my face and sat up. You saw something, she said. Worse, I whispered. I heard them. They're planning to ruin me. With another woman at their side. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. Then I guess it's time. Time for what? I asked. She gave me a wicked grin. Time for our entrance. We didn't dress fancy. Just clean, sharp, and ready for war. Evelyn looked like a whole new person, confident, upright, her eyes practically glittering with mischief. We walked into the restaurant like we belonged there, heads high, hearts pounding. The hostess seated us a few tables away from Bowden and his precious little party. They didn't see us at first. Too busy clinking glasses and patting each other on the back for being world-class liars. Evelyn leaned in and whispered, "Ready?" I nodded. My hands were sweating, but I was ready. I stood up, took a deep breath, and walked straight over to their table. Are you all having a good time? I asked, loud and crystal clear. Every head turned. Bowden's fork clattered to the floor. My mother-in-law's mouth dropped open like someone had just thrown cold water in her face. Silence hit the table like a slap, then Evelyn stepped forward, on her own feet. I don't need a wheelchair anymore, she said, loud enough for the whole restaurant to hear. Surprise. Chaos. My mother-in-law gasped, nearly knocked over her wine glass. What is this? How? Bowden just sat there frozen, as pale as a ghost. Evelyn smiled sweetly. Since last year. I just didn't feel like dealing with you. Then I pulled out my phone, tapped the recording, and let their words spill into the air. She's tainted our family. I'll squeeze every penny out of her. We'll fabricate something if we have to. Gasps. One man at the next table actually muttered, "What the hell?" Bowden lunged up. Venus, this is insane, this is out of context, I cut him off. No. You said it. You all did. And now everyone knows. He dropped to his knees, right there on the restaurant floor. Please, Venus. Don't do this. My job, I'll lose everything. You should have thought about that before dragging me into this sham of a marriage, I said flatly. Security was already on their way. 2 large guards flanked him. Sir, you need to leave. Bowden cried, begged, tried to resist. Didn't matter. They hauled him out like a child throwing a tantrum. I turned to the table, met my mother-in-law's stunned eyes, and smiled. Enjoy your vacation. Then Evelyn and I walked out, heads high, hearts light, and finally free. When I got back home, something in me had shifted for good. The woman who once held her breath hoping for love and approval was gone. In her place was someone sharper, clearer, and completely done playing nice. The first thing I did, before I even unpacked, was walk straight into a law firm where an old college friend of mine worked. She wasn't in that day, but I ended up sitting across from another woman, a lawyer with sharp eyes and a calm presence that made me feel instantly steady. I laid it all out, from the lies and gaslighting to the hidden mistress and the humiliation they served me on a silver platter in Hawaii. I handed over everything, screenshots, the recording, hotel confirmations, and as she sifted through the evidence, her expression hardened. She told me I had more than enough grounds for divorce, and not just that, I could claim alimony, and possibly seek compensation from the mistress as well, since the affair had been ongoing and public enough to damage my reputation and well-being. That was the moment I finally exhaled. After everything they'd taken from me, I was going to take something back. The next few weeks were a flurry of paperwork, financial reviews, and legal strategy. When the investigation confirmed that Bowden had been involved with the other woman for over 6 months, using shared marital funds, no less, it strengthened my case in ways I hadn't even expected. My lawyer didn't flinch. She filed everything with precision, confident that the court would see through the layers of manipulation and betrayal Bowden had carefully crafted. For the first time in a long time, I felt protected, like someone was finally fighting for me, not out of obligation, but because what had happened to me was wrong. 2 months later, the divorce was finalized. The settlement arrived in a thick white envelope. And inside was the sum that made my jaw slack. Alimony from Bowden. Compensation from the woman he'd risked it all for. It didn't erase the hurt, but it carved out something new in me, proof that I was no longer powerless. That every insult, every lie, every plan they made behind my back had led to this moment where I won. Not just legally, but emotionally. I had taken the ashes of their betrayal and turned them into fuel. 3 months had passed since the divorce was finalized, and life had finally settled into a rhythm that felt like healing. My home was quiet in the way peace is quiet, not empty, just finally free of tension. I'd gone back to journaling, redecorated the apartment in warm tones, and even framed a photo of Evelyn and me from our Hawaiian revenge vacation and hung it in the hallway. I wasn't just rebuilding, I was reclaiming. That's why I nearly laughed when, one rainy afternoon, I heard a knock at the door and opened it to find 2 shadows from my past standing on the threshold. There they were, Bowden and his mother, only this time stripped of all their pride, their smugness hollowed out and replaced by something pitiful. Their clothes hung off them, faces pale, skin dull, as if life had drained the color right out of them. Bowden's eyes looked sunken, his posture slouched in a way I'd never seen before. And his mother, who used to sneer at me like I was dirt beneath her feet, was now shaking, clutching a tattered purse like it held the last scraps of her dignity. She opened her mouth first, her voice rasping from a place that hadn't seen kindness in a long time. She said they had nothing left, the mistress had vanished, the job was gone, the house had been sold off to cover legal fees, and they'd burned every bridge they had trying to fight the fallout. She pleaded, saying they were hungry, broke. And that I was the only person they had left. Bowden didn't even speak at first, he just looked at the floor like it might swallow him. And when he finally did, the words were soft, but not sincere, just desperate echoes from a man who had gambled everything and lost. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I simply stood there, arms crossed, letting the silence say everything. Then I shut the door without another word. After a moment, I went to the kitchen, grabbed the coarse sea salt I kept tucked away, and walked back to the entrance. With slow, deliberate movements, I sprinkled it across the threshold, watching the grains fall like tiny fragments of closure. That salt wasn't just for cleansing the air, it was for sealing the boundary between who I used to be and who I had become. And I never looked back. The silence in my apartment wasn't the suffocating kind anymore. It was clean, intentional, comforting, like a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding for years had finally been released. I didn't need to brace myself every time the door opened. I didn't need to look over my shoulder or second guess if I was being loved properly. Because now, I knew what it felt like to love myself better than anyone else ever had. Evelyn and I still talk nearly every day. She's thriving, working on a book, traveling with her real dad, finally living like someone who doesn't have to hide. And me? I've been slowly building something new from the ashes Bowden thought he could leave me in. I'm not just financially stable, I'm independent. I'm not just alone, I'm at peace. Sometimes I catch myself smiling at nothing in particular, just grateful. Not because life is perfect, but because I'm no longer afraid of it. I think about the girl I used to be, the one who folded laundry just right, the one who smiled through insults, the one who kept quiet to avoid rocking the boat. I don't mourn her. I just thank her for surviving long enough for me to take over. The woman I am now doesn't fold herself to fit into someone else's small life. She doesn't beg to be chosen. She walks away when she's disrespected, and she shuts the door with both hands when betrayal knocks. That door? The one Bowden and his mother stood in front of. Pleading like I owed them something? It stayed shut. Not because I was bitter, but because I was finally free. I learned that silence can be a survival tactic, but truth is the only thing that sets you free. I learned that love without respect is just manipulation with a pretty face. And most of all, I learned that walking away isn't weakness, it's power. If you're ever being treated like a burden, you're in the wrong room. So here's my advice: don't wait for someone to choose you. Choose yourself, loudly. Boldly. Without apology. Now let me ask you, have you ever ignored the red flags just to keep the peace? What would you do if you caught your partner plotting behind your back? Let me know in the comments. I'll be reading.